Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Code with the Italians with our favorite resident troll, which is going to be trolling us today live. Hi, Mark.
Hello, hello. What's all this shouting? We'll have
Ah,
no trouble, Peter.
now you said it live. It's like a minor accomplishment. So, what are we here to do today? We're here because we're not going to be coding, which is a very good thing because today I'm absolutely sleepy. So I think the amount of bugs per lines of code that I would write today are would be disastrous. So for everyone's sake, we're not going to be coding today, which also works well because we had planned to do more of a kind of a campfire-y thing where we all gather around the fire and we tell each other horror stories about our the previous companies and projects that we have worked on without making any names because we do not like being targeted by lawyers. Um, so yeah, we have invited Mark because he has a lot of stories. But like, Ivan has also been freelancing for quite some time, so I think Ivan has some interesting stories to share as well. And I might have some, even
Hello.
though I have not really ever really contracted much. So I have some stories, but maybe of a different kind. Ivan, do you want to do the Ivan thing?
Yes. So I want
Oh,
to
by the way,
start.
sorry, I want to say I love your T-shirt.
Yes, this is a Christmas present. My sister, she actually had it made.
Oh,
So yeah,
nice.
it was a very nice gift. Love it. And so let's start with so hi Mark and hi
Oh, hi,
Sebastiano. I
Mark.
hope you are doing well. I mean, just just to put it out there. So for today's episode, I want to reiterate that we have a Slido page. So if you have questions or you want to check and vote for other people questions, um, that's the page. I want to welcome our Ladies Coffee supporter, Aurelio. Thank you, Aurelio. He joins the coffee team with Mark, Maya, the secret Serbian supporter, and Sole Mane and Morphine Coffee. So thank you for your support on our coffee page. On the supporting note, if you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you can support us for free. You will connect your Amazon and your Twitch account, and then you will see a new subscribe with Prime button in the on our home screen, basically, and that will allow us to get some spare change from Uncle Bezos to buy more stickers. So thank you for the support,
Thank
Salford.
you. We're
Um,
totally going to be spending
so
this on
the
stickers, as is our
yeah, I mean
promise.
this is what we do. And now just to reiterate, Salford, welcome to the subscriber party, where you can win the holo sticker if you participate to our giveaway. So we are giving away stickers every episodes. We are giving away IntelliJ licenses every week. It's like $150 worth of license. So keep an eye on the chat, and that's it. I guess probably some of you will be receiving stickers next week because we
Hopefully.
ship them especially. Yeah, well, I mean, especially the ones in Italy and in Europe, probably they will hopefully get it.
Yeah.
But just to tell you again, everything is free of charge. So if we win the stickers, we are just going to ship them. And we are very proud that we can ship them worldwide for just a couple of euros, like €3-ish, because we use airmail. So, no tracking, but at least it's cheap.
Yeah, it might take a few weeks if you're very far away, but it's gonna get there.
Well, I mean, we have been shipping them from Canada to India to Nepal. I'm very grateful. We have people joining us from everywhere, and I just want to I'm gonna put it in the chat so you will have a link as well, because we are gathering questions also for the next episode with Chuck. It's gonna be Jetpack internals, super duper,
Jetpack
like some serious
Compose
stuff
specifically.
Yeah. Jetpack Compose, because Chuck built like some serious internal Jetpack Compose stuff. So it's gonna be interesting. If you have questions, just throw them there. Anything else?
Yes, there is something else. If you're a subscriber on Twitch, make sure that you join our Discord server, because after the live, or if you are just generally a coffee supporter or a YouTube supporter from the Bruschetta tier and up, then you have access to our Discord. And you should do it, because after the live is done, we're going to have an exclusive after show kind of thing and we're starting today. It's the first time, so it's probably going to be broken as shit. We're not going to get it done for a good 15 minutes, just trying to get it to work. But the idea is that...
Is it on? Is it on? Can you hear me?
But the idea is that you might have noticed for the past couple of weeks, we have been having a lot of fun making stupid clickbaity thumbnails for YouTube. It doesn't seem to change much in terms of how many people get to watch it, but it's very fun to make, and we've had a lot of fun with the speakers as well, with the guests. Playing with them, making them. So today is the first time that if you're a subscriber, you can actually join us live. So keep an eye on the Discord after we're done with the live, so you can join us for that. I think before we get started, there was a good suggestion from our newest subscriber, Selforg, that was saying that maybe trying to keep some positive stories for the last 15 minutes or so. And I think we were actually talking about earlier about taking a short break, 30 minutes from the end, so we can grab a beer and then get into the good stories. So maybe that's a nice coincidence. You're probably going to try and come up with the positives as well. It's much easier to complain about things, but that's very important to also keep an eye on the good stuff.
Absolutely.
So who wants to start with the bad story? Because we start with the bad.
Okay.
Unless you want to do a shit sandwich. I don't know. Up to you.
Well, I could give an explanation of how I began freelancing. That's kind of a good and bad in some ways. So I've been freelancing for 8 years now, or should I say 12 years?
More than 2.
It'll be 8 years in April, May, I think. And when I started, it was actually my second attempt. I'd almost done it once before, and I'd got as far as accepting a contract position. I'd resigned from my permie job. I'd set up a limited company. I'd got business insurance. I'd got, set up everything. I'd got an accountant employed and all this kind of good stuff. And 2 weeks before I was due to start, the company I was due to go to announced they were putting a freeze on all new contracts because they had a new CTO coming in and he wanted to review everything they were doing. So everything got put on hold and it all fell through.
Ouch.
So that was enough to put me off freelancing for a couple of years. Um, because I was still open to getting a freelance role, but I was sort of in a position where I had to find something to pay the mortgage. So it was a case of either take just whatever came. What did come up was a permanent role. And then scooch forward a couple of years, and in that intervening time, I'd kind of had a few permanent roles which just weren't good fits, and I was not spending that long at any of them. And before realizing it was, you can only tell so much about a company when you interview for them. It's only when you actually start working there you really get to really understand the company culture and all of this stuff. There was one I hung out for a year just because I'd had a couple of shorter ones and was just worried about how things were looking on my CV or resume, for those that call it that. I was really concerned that you apply for a job and it looks on your, someone's going to ask, why do you not last very long in any jobs? And it begins to look bad if you've got a track record of this. So I decided to give contracting a go, partly because I had a reasonably high profile in the community thanks to my blog, and I know there's a question on Slido about that, so we'll revisit that later on. But I thought it was a good time. I thought it was a good time to do it. Plus, it would mean no one ever questions a contractor. Oh, you only lasted 3 months in that particular role. Why is that? Because that's how long the contract lasted.
Yeah.
It's not the same as a permanent role. And so the intention was...
Fun fact, they asked that to me. They asked me once when I was freelancing. I was like, why you keep jumping? And I was like, and I had to give them this exact answer because that's how a contract lasts. And they were like, oh yeah, okay, because they were never getting freelancers, right? They were used to permanent people, so it was like they started looking at the CV and it looked weird to them.
So how long was the contract they were hiring you for, though? Because if it was 3 months, it'd be like, but
no, I think it was 1 year, that kind of stuff. 6 months plus extendable, whatever. It was a long contract because they were looking for an employee. So that's there was the glitch. Sorry, Mark, for interrupting you.
No, it's fine. But yeah, but that was part of it. That I thought, even if I do start contracting, if I find somewhere that's actually a good fit, it's easy enough to make the transition from contract to permie. And although I found some places that have been pretty good fits, the reality is I quite enjoy being my own boss. I can say when I take vacation, I like the fact that I have a certain amount of freedom to move on when I'm ready to. It doesn't look negative on my CV if I just feel like I need a change, or something isn't a culture fit. But that's not to say I haven't been a fairly long time in some contracts. My current one I've been in 18 months. So there's good stuff there as far as I'm concerned. So Maya's asking, I guess I'm partly answering that already. Why do you want to leave freelance and go permanent? That's kind of an issue I've never actually reached. That's a point I've never reached, because once upon a time there was more security in a permanent role. But I don't think that's the case these days. I think
in the UK, not much.
In the UK.
I think in Europe, is a bit different. If you're a permanent employee, you have way more guarantees than you do in the UK, and especially in the US, where they can just like, bye, from one day
Ciao.
to the next. Yes.
Yeah, usually over Skype calls and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, oh God.
But yeah, so there are other benefits like you get paid vacation, you can get healthcare and stuff like that. But as far as I'm concerned, I've actually structured my business to allow me to do that. So, I don't just take everything out of the company that gets paid in. I have rainy day money, so if I want to take vacation or need time off sick, I can still pay my wage. I've got private healthcare through the company. The company pays for private healthcare because, as far as I'm concerned, if I needed healthcare, it benefits the company if I can go back to work quicker. So for me, it's a valid business expense. So yeah, certainly, as far as I'm concerned, there's no real compelling reason to go permy. I would probably see it as something that I'd rather avoid these days, because it would kind of mean having to go back into this cycle of performance reviews and promotions and all this kind of stuff, which I managed to skip.
Yeah, I guess like if your goal is to be an independent contributor in the team, then you can absolutely be contracting. It gets harder if you're trying to get to maybe a leadership team or some position that is like an engineering manager. It's very hard to be a contractor in such a position. Although there are companies that hire contractors for every role out there, including project managers and like all the things, which to me is kind of weird because you don't want to change project manager every 6 months. That's kind of the point.
I mean, I
you
worked
want
with companies
continuity.
that were bootstrapping, very early stage startups where you get consultant on board for every role, and then in the meantime you start looking for the right candidate for the permanent position.
But that's a transition phase. I'm talking about companies that do it continuously. Like it's fine if you're bootstrapping a team and you need to ship something tomorrow and you don't have time to hire and build a team of permanent employees. But and that's fine. What I don't understand is companies that run most of their team as contractors and they have a very high turnover, not just in the tech part, but especially in the managerial part, which means that like there's hard breaks every 3 to 6 months because people change, and you might be lucky, you might be unlucky, and it's very hard to get consistency over time because people are different. They do different things in different ways, and that's, I think it's easier to deal with when you're talking about someone coding, but it's very hard to do when you're trying to coordinate a bunch of people and aiming for a goal. Like if you're managing something, if you're going for some sort of result, every person that is in the position of leadership will see the goals and the priorities slightly differently, or even entirely differently sometimes. So every time you change, even though you have been told, oh yeah, the company goals are A, B, C, D, someone might also say, oh, but you know what, it would be very nice if we also did this, or if we did this instead of that. And it's like, it's by the nature of the job, being like a project manager or a product manager even, I think consistency is very important. But that's just me.
I guess that kind of almost segues into another aspect of contracting that it came at me by surprise initially when I first encountered it. And that's when you come to the end of a contract. It's kind of different to when a permie role comes to an end. Usually permanent roles come to an end for a relatively small number of reasons, generally. I know I'm generalizing that, that there can be other reasons, but it's either because for whatever reason you're no longer happy at the company. Either the culture's changed, that you don't like the direction the company's going, your career path is limited, there's personality clashes, and you get to that position and you're ready to move on. You want to find something else. There's also being companies that make redundancies or cut the workforce, and then you kind of have a bit of animosity towards the company. And in most of those cases, you don't have a great love for the company you're leaving. It's there. As I say, there are exceptions. You might need to leave a company because you need to change location and you can't continue there with the new location, or maybe because you've had an offer from you've been approached from somewhere else and it's just an offer too good to turn down, and you don't dislike the company, but you feel you've got to take this new opportunity. And that's kind of how it feels sometimes when a contract comes to an end, that you're not ready to move on, but the contract ends, and it's kind of sad. And you think, oh, it was a new feeling to me actually leaving a contract and not feeling some degree of animosity towards the company I was leaving, because I've been made redundant a couple of times in my life. I've already said that at the time I started contracting, I'd gone through some roles that just weren't a good fit. So by the time I was ready to leave them, I really didn't have good feelings about the companies I was leaving. But the end of my first contract, the contract came to an end. I'd worked with some really good people, one of whom might actually be on this chat at the moment, or on the stream. So yeah, I worked. Although we weren't working on the same project, I was working with Seb there. I'd known Seb before I started contracting, and before he joined that company. But we actually got to at least work for the same company for a little while, which was good. But at the end of that contract, I genuinely felt sad to be leaving, and I had really fond memories and really good feeling towards the company, and that was something I really wasn't used to or expecting, and it caught me slightly by surprise. And I guess I've got more used to it now, but it's still something that's can be different to leaving permanent roles, in my experience, at least.
Yeah. So, should we get one of the questions from the Slido? I think it is time.
Let's go.
Well, let's start with the one from our friend Alex, which is the one with the most upvotes, which means the only one that has any upvotes. And the question is, how did the Styling Android blog affect Mark's career? I'd love to hear both positives and negatives in terms of opportunities, connections, and maybe also stress to meet deadlines for publishing.
On the whole, it's helped my career hugely. I think, as I alluded to earlier, my profile within the Android community had reached a point when I started freelancing that I was reasonably well known in the community, and it felt like a good time to try and make use of that. And one thing I found since I started blogging, even when I applied for permanent roles, I did go for one interview with a job that I then got that turned out to be a bad fit. But at the interview, we got about 5 minutes into it, and they said, we're quite happy now. We just wanted to confirm that you are the guy that writes the blog. Do you want the job? And it was as simple as that. as it turned out, it wasn't a great fit. But yeah, we can maybe get into some war stories from that particular one at some point.
Yeah.
But and I'm sure there might be some people that watch on catch up that know I know from that particular one, and yeah. But yeah, so it certainly helps that you've got a body of work there, both in terms of blog and GitHub. And, you know, on more than one occasion, I've been asked to do a take home task, and I've said, look, here's my GitHub account. There's something like 150 different projects there. If you can look at that and see whether I know what I'm talking about, then fine. But if you're not prepared to do that, why do I have to do a take-home task? You know, if you're not prepared to go and look at my body of work that I've got there in the public domain, I've only actually said that to someone once. But,
your time is free. Kind of ties in with what Maya wrote on the chat a couple of minutes ago, where part of the freelance job is also to, when hunting for a new contract, is to listen to people's ideas, and you cannot build them for that, but sometimes it's clearly just a waste of time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think I've been fairly lucky that I've a lot of people in the UK, particularly, when they do contracting, they go through an intermediary. I will learn to speak by the end of the stream, I'm sure. Go through an intermediary company or an umbrella company. Sometimes this is just through, you know, because some big companies require it, but other times it's because of actually finding roles. Excuse me. So I've been fairly lucky that I've rarely had to go that route. Only once, when it was with a big multinational, that they kind of had it as a requirement that you had to go through a third party. But generally, I go by word of mouth. And again, that's something that's come out of the blog by having a lot of followers on social media in the Android community. When I'm looking for something new, I can put the word out and it gets to a lot of people. And that's certainly something that's grown from the blog. I wouldn't have the amount of Twitter followers as I do if not for the blog. So again, that's an area that's really helped me quite considerably. Sorry, I've got a croak in my throat.
You know what would fix it? A pint.
But
Go, Ivan.
No, I was actually confirming that something similar also happened to me when in the recent year. So because when I started freelancing out of rage, as a lot of things in my life when I was young. Because, you know, I had a permanent job and we had a discussion with the at the time owner of the company, and I was like, because I was working as body rental, something it's kind of not supposed to be happening right anymore. So we were this big client, and there was a discussion, like a silly discussion, and I just spoke openly, and I was called in, you know, the day after to you know, and they told me that I couldn't do that, and you know that I should be grateful for the opportunity, And I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure that I can leave and I can get more money if I somewhere else, and at least a bit more respect probably. And they were like, yeah, try me. And I just rage quit because, well, like young even, that's what you do. And I started
Did you
freelancing.
flip a table while leaving, or?
Sasha, because I was working in a big company in Italy, and that where I met Sasha. So he remembers, and he told me, I mean, he kept telling me for years that I rotated the table. I didn't flip the table because that's what actually happened. So I rearranged my desk in the office, and shit hit the fan because when you were entering the room, my desk looked like the dominant desk compared to the employees in the company, because they were facing the wall. I couldn't work facing the wall, so I just turned my desk. So I was facing their back. So I was like, okay, this guy is actually looking over their shoulder. It's like, he's, and I was like, but this is not it. And the whole discussion exploded and things escalated. And then eventually I quit. And then I started freelancing out of, yeah,
So you
because
could put your
I
desk
rotated the desk.
whichever way you
I,
liked.
so I started freelancing because, yeah, I wanted to turn my desk. But coming back to what Mark said about the blog giving a lot of credits, uh, that hasn't happened to me with the books. And the fascinating part is that's the I 100% agree on the word of mouth. That's how it works for me as well. The contract that I have at the moment is because Sebastiano introduced me to some people, and then this person was like, we need a freelancer. I was like, yeah, boom, let's go. I worked in the past with Ioanni, Ioanni, because we were at a conference and stuff and meetups, and I was like, okay, let's go. I worked with Snap Mobile, and we are still in contact with Snap Mobile. So that's how it works. So usually somebody or somebody knows you because you did something. And I got way more from just meetups and conferences than from books. I mean, I remember, if we want to go in the direction of broken interview processes, I interviewed for a huge company, like one of the biggest company, let's say big. And during the interview, they asked me about reactive programming. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty much solid on this. It was back in the day, so I was fresh. And they told me, we are not sure that you are actually proficient enough on RX Java. I just sent them the cover of the book, from Amazon. And so, yeah, you usually don't make friends like that. So I don't do that anymore. So that's the old Ivan. So I try to be a bit more like, yeah, let's work it out. But I agree with Mark about, when you're an employee, to me, most of the time you are leaving because something very bad happened. So you're
Or
like
something very
burning
good,
bridges. Yeah, well, but when you
but
leave,
elsewhere.
if you leave, yeah, but that's the thing. If you leave because, you're going somewhere else that it's better for you, you are still living as a trader. You will be like a trader. There is no way around. You're like a fucking bastard that is leaving, and yeah. Well, that's my experience. So probably,
In my
maybe I am a fucking bastard. Probably.
in my experience, it really depends how you live, like on which terms. Obviously,
Oh yeah,
if you live,
I usually rage quit.
yeah, if you live like you would, then yeah, probably you would be considered a bastard as like a traitor. If you live on good terms, and I mean, there are cases in which there's reasons not to do that, but they're very rare. Like it's very rare that it's a wise move to rage quit. Let's put it
No,
this
but
way.
I think it's probably something that it wouldn't happen today because the years in between and a lot of freelancing in the meantime, I will probably just let it go in a more like subtle, I would just use my right to leave, like I'm leaving, it's not you, it's me, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
it's like breaking up, right?
Yeah.
You want to
Yeah,
still
yeah.
stay
It's. I mean,
friends, even though you know
it was
you're
work.
right. You know you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it was working until it was not working anymore. So it's not you, it's me, kind of thing. But with freelancing, it's way easier. I mean, because you can work everywhere for 6 months. This is my approach to freelancing. As Mark said during the interview, you can't understand, you can't figure out everything, right? You know a few people, you have the overview of the project, they are feeding you the usual thing. We do clean architecture, we have tests, and we do code reviews, and then you join and it's mayhem, right? But that's it. But at that point, you know that you have, even if you can leave in 2 weeks because you're a freelancer, so you can literally leave. But even if you want to bring the contract to the end, it's just going to be 6 months, right? 3 months, 6 months, or whatever it is. And for me, that helps a lot. Coping with like an environment that maybe I don't want to leave for long. I don't know if it have ever happened to you, Mark, that you for some reason had to stay on a contract even if you will probably leave earlier, but
That's a good
for like
segue.
bigger problems.
I feel another war story coming up.
Well, I mean, this is what it's everything about, right?
Yeah.
Well, there was one contract I was working on where it was. I'm not sure if it was because I was a contractor, they felt that they could, just treat me like shit, and not have to look after me the way they would a permanent employee who could go and complain to HR and stuff like that. But I was finishing up on one project and moving on to another, and there was a transition period where I was kind of doing a bit of both. And basically, the PM was reacting to stakeholders shouting at him. And every 2 days, I was flipping backwards and forwards between these two projects. And I wasn't actually delivering anything on either because I was just getting back up to speed on one, and then I'd be flipping back. And I'm sure everyone on the stream knows, and on the chat knows, that if you're constantly context switching, you're nowhere near as productive as when you actually have a chance to focus on actually producing something. And I was getting incredibly stressed. I wasn't sleeping. I was actually feeling burnout, and it was a really horrible time. I didn't realize it. I had not really experienced burnout that badly before, and I didn't recognize the signs early on. These days, I recognize the signs and I make sure I do something about it early. But then I didn't. And I was, my contract was coming up for renewal, and I was umming and ahhing. And then at the same time, they happened to have a splurge on where they wanted contractors to become permie. And so I was also getting pressure to become perm when I was in the middle of burnout. And
You're like, what?
and so I thought, okay, they asked me how much salary would you want, and I basically gave them an absolutely stupid figure. And the VP of engineering said, that's more than I earn. And I said, well, okay, fine. And
You
then
should ask her for a raise, my friend.
and then they came back and they offered it, and I was then in a
Ouch.
position where I thought, yeah, and at that point, I realized that my health was suffering, and I think the realization that if I was to go perm, with the burnout I was feeling, I would then not be able to turn down meetings at 7 o'clock at night, which I was able to as a contractor. I would be able to say no, I'm not doing that, which I'm. Certain things as a contractor, certainly in UK law, I can be held liable if I was to steal someone else's code and pass it off as my own. I could be held responsible for doing that. If a company told me to steal someone else's code and use it, I could still be held liable. So if I feel that something is absolutely wrong and would put me at risk, I can flatly refuse to do it. And knowing that those kind of rights would be taken away if I was to go perm with this company, not that they were the sort of company that would say, go and steal someone else's code. That wasn't a scenario, but the fact that I would have to, work longer hours, and I, as a contractor, I feel I'm much more in control of work-life balance than if I'm a permanent employee, and that's one of the advantages for me.
Yeah, but that's peculiar because it's the same. So, go, Sebastian.
No,
sorry.
go, Ivan. Go for it. I'll come back to it later.
Thinking about burnout because burnout is something that unfortunately a lot of us experienced, and I did in the past, and I had to put some countermeasure in place as you did. And because at the moment, as I am freelancing and I have a daily rate, okay? So the thing is daily. When I started with Sasha, that we were freelancing together before we opened the company together, when I started freelancing, my first freelance job, it was on a very so the company was doing sport events, okay? So when you work with sport events, deadlines are serious. So those are like actually deadlines, right? Olympic Games, they are starting. You can't say, oh yeah, we missed the deadline by 1 week. That's not how it works. So when you cannot expand the time horizontally, you need to expand the time vertically. And we were paid by the hours because we were working like an indecent amount of hours. Like, we were working like 15 hours a day, that kind of shit.
What?
I remember. Yeah. Ask Sasha. We were working so hard, so much that we were. So at some point, the project manager will just come to the room and ask, "What do you want for dinner?" And they were like, "Okay, sushi, pizza, whatever." And they were taking delivery in, and we were having dinner together and work and work. At some point, it was so late in the evening that we didn't have public transportation available, and I bought a motorbike because I needed to go back home so late in the night, and we were happy. Right? I mean, I was working so hard, so much, making so much money because it was just 1-to-1. Right? The more you work, the more you earn. And now you are earning a lot because you're not freelancing, you're not an employee anymore. You're like, yeah, you're young. And at some point you realize that you don't have the time to spend the money that you're earning because you're working so much. And then the whole thing just, crumbles, and, you just don't want to code anymore. At some point you're like, you know what? I don't want to do this. That's it. It's a Sunday morning. I don't care. I don't want to go to the office on a Sunday morning. And then you try to change the equation from the more I work, the more I gain, the more I earn, to just something like a bit more healthy. Like, okay, I work 8 hours a day and that's it. Right? I work on a daily rate base. So I don't work hours, I work days, and that improved a lot, right? And but then you always have the the pitfall, like the trap that you're working like 10 hours a day, but it's still one day, and then you start tracking the extra hours that you do, but as Maya said, that you cannot bill because that's a day, so you can't bill a day point two. And that's why eventually I started looking into better time management, and I wrote an app that is basically just a timer that tracks 9 hours. That's it. I start the day, I start the timer. 9 hours later, the timer goes ka-ching, because there is a there is a custom sound for that, because I need happiness in my life. And then I just dropped the pen. Right? In Italy, you say you drop the pen, right?
Like in
Cade la penna.
yeah, at an exam, you're like, yeah, drop your pens. Time's
Oh,
out.
drop
Time's
drop the
out.
pen. Like chill out. Hands in the air, like Master Chef, right? Stop working. Hands in the air, and that's my safety net, right? I need to build this constraints around, because otherwise it's super easy for me to just get in the zone, and then you wake up, it's like 9 in the evening. Well, now it's not happening because I have family, a baby, a dog, whatever. I have a lot of safety net. But when you are young and you are maybe living alone, I mean, it's just like this. You just wake up at 9 in the evening and like, what the hell happened? I'm
Yeah.
still working. So yeah, burnout is a serious thing.
So I think to keep a bit more on the theme of this and talking about horror stories, but staying on the idea of overwork and burnouts, I think I've had at least 4 burnouts in my career so far. The first one
Jesus.
was in my second job, and the point was that it was a startup. I was paid for 8 hours, but they would pay extra time that I worked. And there were so many things to do, so many problems to take care of, but even basic stuff like we need a Git server somewhere. And the company doesn't want to pay for GitHub. So we need to buy a computer and set shit up. And so I had just moved house and I was like living alone and everything. And I started working regularly 10 hours a day, 11 hours a day for a long time. And that was the first time that I actually got like burnout. That was the first time that I experienced it. And as everyone, I knew it existed, but I didn't have the tools to understand that it was happening to me. And it's kind of like the frog in the pan where you raise the temperature slowly until the frog dies. And burnout is the same thing. It doesn't happen one day to the next. It happens over time. It's very incremental. And as humans, we are terrible at detecting incremental change, especially on a long time scale that might be months. And so we got to a point where after about a year that I was there, let's say in November maybe, the CEO comes in and is like, oh yeah, we need to ship like this big release in 2 months, like one day to the next, because we're going to a fair, to a big event, and we need to launch it. So we have press, we have investors, we have everything. We need to ship. Like there's no way around it. Talking about big dates, like it's one of the biggest technology and consumer electronics fairs in the world, and that's the date. You have 2 months. That's it, and you have to do all of this like massive list of things like new UI, new apps, new features, new everything. And it's like you have to eat this deadline. And we got to the point where like I wasn't the only one burning out. Everyone burned out because like we were pulling like stupid amount of work hours for months. We worked through the Christmas holidays as well, because obviously that deadline was in January, and we didn't really have that much more time to spend. We got to the point where we managed to kind of ship something that was okay, but not great, because obviously you're crunching, you have unrealistic deadlines, which is a very endemic problem in our industry, especially when management is entirely decoupled from the engineering side. And I think, Mark, you have some stories on that as well. But yeah, that was my first burnout, which kind of, like, I count it as a single one, but just after that event, we got another thing that was like a month and a half later, where we had to do another gazillion of things. And after that, we just got to the point where the week before, we sent a letter, like an email to management saying, guys, we're dead. We are doing all we can, but there's no way we can ship this in a week or less than a week from now. It's not going to work. It's going to be bad. We told you so from the beginning that it was not possible. But yeah, that was a time where I started thinking maybe it was time to change something. And a year later, I moved to London. But yeah, it's the kind of thing where it builds up. And especially if you don't have the experience, if you're at the beginning of your career, it's very hard to understand. And these days, like, I have no real excuse to say that was the first of four. Like, how do you even, like, and that's my problem. I realize I have this problem that I get extremely passionate about what I'm doing, and I know that I'm working too much. I know that I'm doing too many things. And sometimes I even get told by management, in a sort of a weird disconnect of, you need to, like, the team needs to do this, but you don't need to work too, like, you cannot work too hard. And I'm like, well, you can't have both. You can't have a release and not work and not work too hard. But yeah, even this is to say, even if you have understanding of how burnouts work, even if you've been through a few of them, even if you're like paying a lot of attention, trying to avoid it, it's still going to happen if you're not like very strict about it. And I am still learning a lot about that, because being strict is not easy, especially when being strict and doing like, and you really like your work and you want to get things done and you want them to be nice because you are proud of what you do, that makes it more complicated for me. It's not for everyone. I know there's people much more disciplined than I am about it. For example, well, Mark and Ivan, they are much better at this than I am, but I'm working on that.
Yeah, I mean, you can. you need something that works for you. For instance, I have meditation. Marx has alcohol, so you need to find what works for you.
The thing is, I have a lot of alcohol at home, but I don't really drink it as much because I'm a social drinker. That's my problem. I drank a lot more when I was in London because I had more friends that liked whiskey. Now here is like, it's not many, so kind of maybe sometimes if I have someone over for dinner, but
I'm kidding. But we have a question, and Max have an answer.
I do actually have just a follow up to the whole hitting deadlines thing. That I do have a nice follow up to that. There was a company I worked for. It was before I went freelance, so I was permy. I was the tech lead on a particular project, and to give you, it's one of these companies I was referring to earlier when I said until you got in there and realized what the culture was, you didn't realize how bad a fit it was. And you know, this was a company where at company meetings regularly, the CEO would be saying, oh, so and so worked through an all-nighter, and isn't that great? Yeah, great. And everyone's saying, no, it fucking isn't. It shows that management is incompetent if people are having to throw all-nighters. It means that projects aren't being run well if people are having to throw all-nighters. It's not something to be proud of. It's something to be ashamed of. So that was kind of the culture. The entire project I was working on was under huge pressure to deliver on time. My main job on that was actually to protect the team. I felt that I would basically act as an umbrella to take all the shit coming from above to allow them to get on and actually get stuff done. And we had a major deadline come up. We were 2 weeks before we had a major deadline, and the project manager said, right, we want to introduce a whole new process. We want to have regular meetings. We want to start doing this. We want to start doing that. And it starts tomorrow. And I was, well, my position was, I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad idea, but 2 weeks before we're due to deliver, can we just hold off for 2 weeks, get this delivery out, and then we'll do it? No, we do it tomorrow. And so I said, no way can we do this. It really endangers us actually hitting this delivery. And it got escalated and came back down. And I got pulled in by the head of engineering and the head of Android, and they double teamed me and basically told me, you've got to do this. You've got to do this immediately. I put across a lot of very, very coherent arguments about why it was a really bad idea, and just holding off 2 weeks would not jeopardize the delivery anywhere near as much as trying to do this. And they didn't have any argument to come back with other than, right, yeah, we've listened to you, but you've got to do it.
You need to do it, right? It's like that's the worst parenting way of like no because no. Yeah, I don't think we can work with that, my friend.
It's like that because I said so.
Yeah, I said so. I was like, sure.
It's like, am I 2 years old? Is that what you're trying to imply?
Yeah. Can you elaborate, please? Yeah, but that's unfortunate. But
But so I can be a bit of a stubborn bugger when I'm backed into a corner. And and so I thought about it, and I said to them, okay, I'm stepping down as tech lead. I'll continue to work on the project, but you find someone else to lead it. If you're not going to listen to me and take on my feedback when I say that something's going to jeopardize the delivery, then you can find someone else to deliver it. And I was fuming, as you can imagine, when you're put in this kind of position where you have to kind of say things like that. And I sort of walked out of the office, and I just went and walked for about half an hour before returning. And no one else on the team knew quite what was happening. They just knew I'd disappeared. And I reappeared, and literally the minute I walked back in the door, the head of Android saw me, called me back in the office, and they said, okay, we'll wait until after you've done the delivery. But I think I lasted about another 6 weeks there before I left.
Yeah.
But to try and balance some negatives with positives, I actually met some really good people working in that job, even though we were together through adversity. And I still keep in touch with them. I know, Seb, you know one of them quite well, and I'll tell you who it is afterwards. But we still meet up, regularly, or in these times we have virtual meetups. So we still have virtual meetups, okay, every couple of months, and we are actually still share the war stories, and it actually brought us together as a group, and that's a positive. I have friends from that we probably wouldn't have been friends if we weren't quite under so much pressure. So
yeah, but that's the same for me. Brothers and sister in arms, that kind of shit, right? Because when you need to suck it up like big time because reasons, you form this relationships there. In other conditions, probably they wouldn't blossom the same way. So basically, you made friends for the worst of the like I don't know, you know what I mean, right? Because the worst of reasons, you made the best friends.
Yeah, but those bonds are like the bonds of blood and tears are the ones that last the longest. Like I have the same thing where I have a very large group of people or that I still keep in touch with regularly or semi-regularly, depending, but that I've worked with in the past, and we've been through some pretty traumatic shit in some cases together, and that's created a very big bond. And I think everywhere that I've burned out, I've made friends that I still keep in touch with. I mean, it's not a good way to make friends. I recommend doing more healthy ways of making friends. But if you find yourself in that situation, first of all, run. But second of all, try to nurture the relations that come out of that, because it's always, in my experience, always good to make the most out of everything, including bad situations like burnout.
I'm actually trying to keep track of the questions that we have in the chat and putting them on slide, if you don't mind. So
Sure.
We can answer them as we go.
There was a good one from earlier.
Yeah, from Bo 13.
But like
I
a
just
lot
added
earlier.
to slide.
Like 20
Yeah, that's
minutes
why
ago.
if you so the chat is pretty active.
Yeah.
If you are worried about your question being lost, make sure to put it on Slido. I'm also getting the last one from Aurelio on Slido, so just for the sake of having them, also as
I think it was
track record.
Aurelio asking the one that I'm talking about, which is what are the red flags for a bad contract? I don't really know, but maybe Mark and even you have some good answers for that.
Well, but I would like to go to the one that Mark had a question, because he answered in the chat about working.
But I would like
with
to circle back to that one later.
Yes, keep that. Can you put it on slide or something?
Sure.
Please, because I can't remember shit. But there was a question about working with people that don't have any development experience, Mark.
Yeah. Well, it's going back a few years. This is before I was even mobile, so this was more. I was more server side doing messaging systems, and the company in question, they had a great track record of just not delivering stuff. Changing requirements constantly and just never delivering. And they hired a new head of engineering that was he had a 3-month notice period in his old job, and they hired him. And when he did join, he was actually great. He really knew his stuff. But after they'd hired him, and when he was still serving his notice period, senior management decided that they were going to set up an offshore development company or hire an offshore development company to basically get more cheap development. And so they found this guy that was going to set up a company in India, and they basically gave him a shitload of money, and he was going to create this new company that was going to expand our development. And all of this was with no oversight of anyone that had any technical background. Basically, what this guy did is he hired college graduates that wouldn't have made it onto our development team as juniors, and he was hiring them as seniors and everything. And when the new engineering manager started, he almost quit on the spot because he was, why didn't you wait for me to actually join before making this kind of decision? And what it actually did was it slowed us down because we were having the developers, the core development team was actually having to handhold and manage this offshore team. And there, even before I left, they'd started setting up a rota that there was always going to be one of the the development team was going to be in India overseeing this offshore team. And it was just a mess. It was basically senior management with no technical knowledge making technical decisions that they didn't understand the ramifications of. And that didn't go well. There was another one much more recently where it was a fairly big company, and there was kind of like a 50-strong Android development team, and the same with iOS, and even more on back end. And one day, senior management suddenly announced, "Right, we're going React Native," and
what?
They basically fired a load of the engineering teams, and anyone that didn't buy in was basically asked to leave, and and so many people, showed them a lot of articles people have written about trying React Native and why it didn't work, and why it was unsustainable. That there's been some great articles written. I'm not saying React Native is a bad thing, but for senior management without technical knowledge to make that kind of decision is just crazy. So they're my two great stories of people that don't know what they're doing, making these kinds of decisions, and it's.
I have a somewhat related story to that. But one of the companies I worked at that was also a startup. So, it's a startup. It starts with someone that has an idea, someone that has the money, and if you're lucky, with someone that knows what they're doing. That was not the case. It was a guy with an idea, a guy with the money, and nothing else.
And somebody else.
The first year, maybe more, of their life, they had absolutely no technical knowledge in the company, and they went to outsource everything. So their first idea is that, we're just going to do the marketing part and the ideas part, and we can just outsource the technical part to the code monkeys, and they hired some companies that had the horrible habit of essentially always saying yes to any stupid idea, never delivering on them, and pretending they did. So when we started, and I was the second technical person to work in that company, and the first one was the second technical person to work as a technical person. They had hired someone with some technical knowledge a few months earlier. That pretty much the first thing they said was, you need to hire developers because you ain't gonna do a software and hardware product without, people that know that shit. So they hired first this other person, then myself, in within a month, and we spent, I think, the first 6 months of work there, just redoing shit and fixing things that were like, we were looking at the code. Besides the fact that, okay, on the topic of not knowing what you're doing, this was a company that was doing a product that was running software and a custom operating system, and they had never thought about asking for the source code. So their contracts didn't say, with the outsources company, didn't say that they would own the source code. They didn't say that they would even see the source code. So the first thing we did was we had to wait a month for them to draft out contracts, like addendums to those contracts with those companies, so that by paying extra money, they could get the sources of the product that they had paid for. And so that was like, that's like, when something like that, and we didn't know when we started that was the case, but we started and we found out, and we were like, oh fuck. It's like, that's not a good sign. The fact that they don't want to give you the source code, it means God knows what we're gonna find in there. Yeah. We were right. It was shit. It was, the stereotypical XKCD thing where the comic where you which has been used for many different things recently, but you have this like giant complex machine that stands on a very, very flimsy small foot thingy.
Yes.
It's like that's the idea. Log4j. Like, that was the way the operating system was kind of relying on hacks. Let's put it mildly. But sometimes you were looking at it, you were like, these people have never done Android before. They don't know what they're doing. They're just saying they can. And I was, God, seeing that code was like the first day, it was like just laughing at the screen. It's like, how? How does this even work in the first place?
But that's how you become a freelancer, because you want to run from this kind of stuff. But it happens all the time. It happens all the time. But there are also I worked on projects where when they show you the actual thing, when you join the team, I was an employee, a permanent, when we joined the team, and I was like, we are using machine learning for things, and they explain you the whole idea, and you instantly go, that cannot be done. Because that we don't have the technology. Yes, we have an helicopter on Mars. That's not the case, my friend. Okay, we are throwing a satellite into the sun, but we still cannot do those things. And they were like, no, because we have a whole team of people working on this machine learning. And 1 year and a half later, the thing is still not happened, because you cannot do it. But those are the red flags that you probably see only when you join. And for me, that was was a stressful thing, being an employee, because you buy in a series of values and visions, and the CEO that sells you the thing, and then you join, and it's like just a nightmare of lies. So that didn't work out for
but
me.
Nobody's going to willingly. Well, no, I say nobody. That's not true. Nobody that is sane and not completely living in their own world is gonna tell you, "Oh, look, the situation is pretty dire at an interview." They're gonna try to make it sound nice, and everything is perfect, and everything is cool, and we're using the latest tech, and we're doing it the right way. But then that's when you have to ask questions. Like, the interview is not just you being interviewed; it's also you interviewing them.
Yeah, and I agree. You need to ask questions, but there is also a different layer of, let's say, deception when you are applying for a permanent role and when you are a freelancer. Because I mean, as a freelancer, they know that I can leave right away, right? I just can say, you know what, I'm not coming on Monday because this thing I did. So for me, that's different. I find way more honest situations when I'm interviewing as a consultant. Like, it happens more often that they are like, we need help. We need help because I mean, I was approached a couple of months ago at the end of the year. A company, it was like, even we need help for 6 months or 9 months. We can work on that because we cannot find senior engineers. We need help. So we need somebody to come and help us, like putting a band-aid on the bullet wound
Yeah.
in the meantime, because it was not a dramatic situation. It was just a classic situation. The previous developer got a promotion, so now you have an engineering manager, but you don't have a software developer anymore. So now you need to hire somebody, and you can't actually find them. So there was a struggle for them, but it was a honest situation when they approached me. I was like, we need help. So I worked for a company where, like, they asked for training because they were hiring junior developers. So, like, even you need to come and you need to do a lot of stuff. We are in a bit of a problematic situation because we need people. We don't find people. We also don't have. And then you get there, and it happened to you. You get there. There is no CI, and I was like, okay, can we start with some infrastructure before we start hiring people? Like stopping deploying to the Play Store from somebody's laptop. That kind of stuff. So you can help. And as a freelancer, I find a bit less fog that tries to hide problems. The fact that you have an expiration day, like a best before date, it works a bit better for me.
Yeah, but as a
Um,
permanent employee, you still have a notice period. That is like while you're on probation, it goes both
yeah,
ways.
yeah, but then it affects your CV.
Just
I left
skip,
in my
leave a gap of 2 months. You don't need to talk about
they
it.
basic they know this. No, but you don't. I mean, nobody can force you to talk, but they will see. For instance, I left a couple of companies before the end of probation because, in the first 3 months you're kind of ramping up. By the end of third month, you figure out that the place is okay, or you need to leave. And that point, you just starting interviewing for the next one. And when it's like 5 months and 3 weeks, you just say, you know what, ciao. But that's, especially if you're at the beginning of your career, if you don't have credibility in the industry, that's not super okay.
But I've done that
On
and
the
it's
other
been
hand,
okay. Like, just be honest. If someone asks, like, you don't need to put it out there, but if someone asks, you can just say, I left that because I didn't think it was the right company for me, and it wouldn't make sense for anyone involved to have me against my will and against
there
my
is
better judgment. If the
there is a
company
lot of
if
prejudice,
the
so
company
it's
then tells you, oh, we will not hire you because you did that, and then, like, well, you know what, maybe you're not the right company for me either. So
but
there's
that's the
that.
thing. But that's a lot of time that you also invested in interviewing before you find out. That's a nice. You're lucky if something like that happens. But when I was in Berlin, for instance, there was so much need of developers that they mark you as a fly risk, but at least you are okay for a few months, right? Because they are constantly looking for other people. So it's tricky. Um, I would like to go back to one of the questions on slide, if you don't mind.
Sure.
There is something that Aurelio asked about. Have you ever been treated unfriendly by your colleagues because you were a freelancer?
Mark?
Mark.
No. I can't say I have. I've generally been welcomed as though I was a permie. So no, that's not something I've experienced at all.
Even?
I was treated as the outsider. Yes. I as yeah, it happened, and it happened a couple of times, and it's not okay, but it's something that you can cope, because you enter in a mindset where, like, we're back to what I said at the beginning. You realize that the environment, it's not okay. You don't want to stay there. You have a contract that you want to take to an end, bring to an end, at the end of the contract. You know that you are not going to renew the contract, so you are like you are in a situation, mind situation, where you're like, I can. I know that it's gonna be like 3 more months and that's it, right? So you switch. I switch to a mindset where, like, um, I count the days, right? Because maybe you bought a house or things like that, so you can't quit. Because freelancing is super nice if you build a bit of a buffer, right? Mark was saying, I have money for rainy days. When people compares freelancing with permanent, a lot of time they're like, yeah, but if something happens, I still have a salary. Yes, that's true. As a freelancer, if you don't work, you don't get paid. But on the other side, when you work, you get paid a bit more. So eventually, long term, that adds up and it works out. But yeah, to go back to the question, yes, I was treated differently, because I was the hired gun that it was there to satisfy some project manager desire of, oh, let's try out this thing for 6 months and see. So they were like stalling my PR. They were like nitpicking on my PRs. It was a very unhealthy situation, but yeah, it happened.
Well,
And
we also know people that are contracting for a company long term, and they are essentially doing the same job as regular employees are. There's not much
yes,
different there apart the
yes,
fact that they are contractors.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But they still get,
But I
like,
have
the,
great
the
experience.
process are different, and they, like, I've heard recently from someone that like they have a backlog of, well, like, more than a month of PRs, because company policy is only that permanent employees can merge PRs, and the only person that could merge the PRs that is not a contractor is on paternity leave. So that's gonna be like another 6 months before shit get shipped, and you're like, but why? And and
On
on
the
the
other,
but that happens, and that also there's companies that hire you as a contractor, maybe because they don't have like a legal entity in the country you're in, but you're essentially a permanent employee. But then still you have to go through extra hoops. Their processes are more convoluted. You don't know about things. You only find out about things that you should be knowing to do your job after the fact, because they've only told employees, and maybe they asked the employees not to tell contractors about that for whatever reason. And like, that happens, and I think that's stupid, because that only makes the contractors more disenfranchised with the work they're doing, and it turns literally into a, I'm doing this job 9 to 5, that's it. I'm not gonna spend
yeah,
like a gram of extra effort on this thing, because not worth it. And it's like,
I
it's
was
just a
I was
waste
the
of
only
time
one.
and money. It's just
Yeah,
stupid.
I was the only one not that couldn't use their own GitHub account. Everybody was using their account. I had to create another account just for them. So it was like untraceable that I worked for them. It was like you don't have NDAs already. Yeah, and so but there was like no trace. I was not part of a lot of. On the other side, there are like beautiful reality, like the one that I'm working at the moment, where there are like a lot of freelancers on the team, and I feel more part of a team as a freelancer in this team than when I was employee for like other companies.
But that
I mean,
that company is very much an outlier in the great scheme of things. I think
yeah,
Mark can agree on that.
Yeah.
but I am very grateful. I mean, they send me like when my baby was born, they sent me a card. Congratulations! They sent me like a card for Christmas. So those are things that like, well, that's nice. I mean, they shouldn't. They are not supposed to do that with freelancers, but they are doing it out of just we want to work together nicely. So
we have kind of organically segued into the good things part, but I think, Mark, we need to open the bar. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, we'll be back in a minute with a beer. You should get something to drink as well if you want. So be right back. Hello, welcome back. I even managed to feed the cats that were scratching against the door. We're like, no, feed me.
those are very creepy cats, Sebastian.
Well, they're very lovely, but they need to be fed when they're hungry. Otherwise, they get very
Fair enough.
noisy.
Fair
But
enough.
cheers, everyone. Do I need to like cover the label?
Yeah, hashtag no ads.
No ads. I mean, hashtag ads, but not unpaid ads.
Not beers.
Not ads that don't get us free stickers to send to people.
So, do we want to get another question?
Yeah, sure. And then, no, I'm not feeling sleepy anymore. As always, when I start, I might be very tired or very sleepy, but just wakes me up for some reason. And I really like this. And it's one of the reasons why I'm still doing this almost, well, is it 9 months in? I think so.
Yeah.
Almost to the day. Wow. But yeah, that's like it reinvigorates me even when I'm tired. I'm just very happy when I'm done.
When I'm done, like I'm done.
Well, when I'm done, I'm done. Of course.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you want to look at? Like, which question were you thinking about?
There was something that I think like the first two are similar, so I will probably or the first one I will say probably what are the questions that you will ask during an interview to try to spot the dangerous things, like if you have some
I mean,
some
the classics
most
are
of us
which
have
CI
done a
do
lot
you
of interviews.
use? Not do you have a CI, but which CI do you use? How do you set up your static analysis? That also tells you a lot. What's your code ownership policy? And also the like, what's your process? Like, how does it work from the moment someone picks up an issue from the issue tracker to the moment where the relevant code is merged into the main branch? Those are vague questions, but they can be quite revealing in my experience about like how a team works and what are the fucked up parts that you have to deal with, because there's always something that is a bit fucked up and or done in a different way that is not fucked up but is not the way you would do it, and then you have to just suck it up.
Kind of related to one of Seb's points is, how many lint warnings does your project have?
Oh fuck yes.
If either they don't know or there's loads, but it might, something like that might prompt a discussion. They might say, "Yeah, we're dealing with a lot
Yeah.
of tech debt, and this is how we're trying to address it." So it might actually give you a starting point for a conversation that will help you better understand the culture of the team and how they're addressing things like technical debt.
Can you model the number of lint warnings in your code base with an integer? I mean, that's a good start. But yeah, I will point out Sebastiano made very, very nice example of questions because they are also open questions. So I will probably go for something that they cannot just answer with yes or no, because then that will be a bit easier on their side. You're like, oh, do you do pre-programming? Yes. And now what?
But it's also much easier to be revealing when you answer an open-ended question rather than a very specific question. It's like, be vague and then see where the answer gets you. And even if the answer in itself doesn't have any red flags, like how someone answers a certain question will tell you a lot about what their priorities are, how they see things, how they think about problems. So that's just you have to pay more attention to the subtext of an answer, but the subtext is very important.
Make sure that you don't get tricked into an answer that is like, okay, this is like a greenfield project. We don't have an Android app. We don't know yet. Make sure that you ask, there is an iOS app, 100%. There is already something for iOS. There is something for backend. Let's try to have information about also how other teams are working, because it happened to me to start the Android project and I was forced the same process and same technologies that the other teams were working for the sake of homogeneity, right? We want to use the same CI that the backend is using also on Android. And then if you want to use something different, those are battles that you need to understand if you want to fight. So that's very important. Plus, I usually just talk to the people. I mean, it's very easy for me to spot an asshole. It takes like 5 minutes. I mean, probably because I have experience, that's unfortunate, but try to understand, talking to the person in front of you, can I work with this person for 6 months? And it doesn't have to be specifically a developer. If you are lucky enough to have like a mixed interview where there is like a designer or somebody from product or somebody, those are the second level kind of interviews where you are also talking to people from other teams. Try to understand, is the designer an asshole? Is the project manager a piece of work, right? Because those people are going to be in your life for a lot of weeks. So it's not, and it's okay if the Android team is like like a solid Spartan squad, but it's also important that you need to talk to other people. It's not okay if it's the Android team against the rest of the world all the time, or because if you don't have somebody like Mark was when he was leading that team, that shields the rest of the team, or like Sasha was doing for a long time when we were working together, that he was getting all the shit, like the amount of shit that it was stopping at the gates to protect the team, it was insane. If you don't have that kind of person in front of you, it's gonna be hard. So you just need to talk to people, and it will reveal a lot. It's not, though, as Sebastiano said, it's not about the question per se. The question is just to engage, to start the conversation, and then you just get the ball rolling and get information.
A metric that I find useful, but it has to be treated with extreme caution for reasons that I'll get to, is that a question that one of the companies that I worked at was kind of asking interviewers after they interviewed someone is this person someone that you would like going to the pub with, if going to the pub is a thing you do, or like hypothetically speaking. So do you think that the person that you're interviewing is a nice person, not just if they're competent, but also if they're nice? The risk with this, if you're not careful, is that you might end up creating a bubble, like a cultural bubble where everyone is the same, everyone thinks the same, and so on. Luckily enough, that company was pretty diverse, at least in terms of provenance of people, or people from, as a European company. So as most European company, most of the people are from Europe, which means predominantly white, because that's the predominant amount of people in the industry in Europe is white and male. But it's still
heterosexual. Checks all the boxes.
Yeah, but that you cannot necessarily tell. And to be fair, I don't care. I don't give a shit. It's their business, not mine.
We don't care about anything. So,
yeah.
You can be whatever you want. Just be nice.
But if you are very careful about the way you pose yourself the question, you need to know that you're the person that would go to the pub for a beer with someone because they're a nice person, not because they're like you. So that's the key to that question: is this person a nice person? And that's like the pub metaphor is a way for you to understand that. But again, be careful with that. But at the same time, try to hire people that are nice people, not assholes in general. And that is not, like, it's aside from the question of what are the red flags, but it's still very important. Hi, Spike.
It just sneezed.
I would go to the pub with Spike.
Yeah,
we're not even the same species, but I'll do it anyway.
Yeah. He will be just freaking out about smells and things, but he will be staring at you, waiting for French fries. Yeah, it's or sushi. I mean, last time it was sushi.
Dogs.
Mark.
Yes.
Give me one pointer that you always try to get, like, an information when you talk to the next customer.
I don't really have a general one because, again, partly the nature of freelancing is that sometimes you're required to do different kind of roles. So I can go in, I can be kind of like a senior if they need me to be a senior. I can just be a head down coder. In my current role, I'm more a technical writer. And so they're all kind of different disciplines. So, technical writing, I've got to after 10 years of writing a blog. So that's kind of something I've learned and helped me get hired for that. But knowing what working on that kind of a project is going to be like is kind of different to evaluate than writing a to-do list app or something. So it's kind of my experience is kind of varied. So there's no real single thing that I look for. But then there are times where I've worked for the same company multiple times. I'm my current spell with my current contract company. I worked for them a couple of years ago, or a couple of years before I rejoined on this one. and I've worked with Navoda a few times. That's where I first worked with Seb, and
That's me.
and I know we said we weren't naming names, but I mentioned Navoda
On the
in a
good side,
positive
we
way.
can.
Yeah,
On the good side, we can.
I mean, I'm also working for Navoda, and that's one of the positive examples that we threw on the table. Hi, team. Hi, Joseph.
Ciao.
But okay, thanks. I mean, this is good. I like the fact that you are like polyedric. I can do a lot of stuff. Just let's try to do cool things. I so I always volunteer for the weirdest, boring, shittest tasks. Like, I'm the one that does the analytics everywhere. Most of the time I do the CI stuff, because for me, I like being that kind of person, right? Like serving the team at some level. Because if you only want to do the cool stuff, yeah, everybody wants to do the cool stuff. But then at some point, somebody has to also clean around, right? Eating and cooking is nice, but you also need to clean the kitchen at some point. So that's something that I like. Sebastiano, do you want to throw another question?
Sure. Let's pick another one. Pa, 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 pa. Okay, we're talking a lot about how bad other people have been. Let's show that we all make mistakes. What about something you did and you regretted? I'll start with that. For the longest time, and that means for years, I've been terrible at one of the things that now I think is very important for someone that works in a team, which is having opinions, but also being ready to change your opinions when someone has better opinions than yours and they prove it. And being able to listen and not always talk. I have a lot of opinions. I like to talk. It took me years to understand that I was overwhelming people that had equally valid, if not better, ideas, but were too shy to bring them up. So that's one of the biggest failures in my early career. I'm trying hard not to do that again, but sometimes it might happen, and then I hate myself for it. And I try to apologize to the person or people that are involved in this if I catch myself doing it.
But this is something that it's ongoing, and it's taking a lot of time. I want to show you something. Let's hope that my webcam can handle this. So you will probably see the stickers. Can you read them?
Yep. Assume good intent, slow it down, stop talking, and what's the other one?
Let them correct you.
Ah, right.
And on the other side, I have slow it down because it's never enough, and smile. So this is something that I really want to stress. Improving is a constant thing. And it's nice having opinions or having like an answer all the time because you have experience. But if you jump on the question every time as the first one, people there are different from you, different levels of energy, different levels of, being a bit introvert or extrovert. They will never have a chance, or like junior developers, they will never have a chance to get in the discussion. That's why there is this slow it down or stop talking. So that's so Sebastian, I'm very very happy that we shared this trajectory to betterness.
I never rage quit a job though, so I think you beat me on that.
Well, I mean, it happened. So that's something. If I can jump on the answer train, that's something that I did in the past and I'm not doing anymore. So I did it when I was young. I did it when I was older, but I was in Berlin. I did it in a way. I did it over Slack. I did it over. I quit. I quit over Slack, having a discussion with the CTO. At some point, I was, you know what, I'm quitting, and I just walked past his desk, reached HR, and resigned. You shouldn't do that. So don't try this at home. Don't do that, because that sets a bad example. Because somebody also took the screenshot of the conversation, and in Berlin, at some point, everybody knew that I was that kind of person, and that can hurt your career. So try to be a bit more mindful when you are like, it's okay being pissed off, but try to be a professional as much and as long as possible. You're still gonna quit, but there are different ways to do that. I'm all about, burning bridges to light your path, because that's how I let them light the path. But being a professional is a tricky thing. So that's something that I was doing in the past, and I regret, and I changed. I also don't do any more very high energy discussions. So when I was working at Clue, it was a very different environment from what I was used to work, right? So I grew up in southern Italy in the 90s. I worked in Italy in the early 2000s. I was basically exposed to, just as Sebastiano said, white males like wolves, right? The office was just like a cage full of wolves, and the most aggressive one was the dominant one, and eventually you are doing what he says. um, that didn't work. When you are like in a healthy environment, that doesn't work. And I was lucky enough to have a company. Again, this is a positive example. I had a company that took the time and the chance of helping me, and I got the training that they were providing. And the trainer, the coach, told me, even, you need to take it down a notch, because if you come with so much energy, and it was positive energy. It was like, yeah, let's fucking do it, that kind of stuff. I was never like a bully, but even that kind of energy is uncomfortable with people that are like a bit more introverts, right? You get like very upset when you have somebody so energetic in the room. So eventually, to have a healthier conversation, I just tried. I just was able to lower a bit the level of energy, and so you can bridge the differences. So yeah, that was a positive example, and things that I don't do anymore. That was like two, but for the price of one. Mark.
I guess for me, there was I love working with designers. I Because I like doing graphical stuff. There was one particular project I was working on where the designer actually worked for the client, not for the company that I was working for. And one thing I think I'm quite good at is finding what I call design bugs. So whereas we have bugs in code, if we have a design that might be problematic, that I can see when we try and implement this, there may be, like if you've got nested scrollable areas, getting the touch control and the scrolling right can be tricky, and getting a good UX isn't necessarily obvious from designs, static designs, and it's not until you implement them you see the problems. I think I'm quite good at spotting them up front, but in this particular company, there was a very inexperienced PM that was working for the company I was contracting with, and if I went to her and said there's a problem with this design, because she was inexperienced, she was a bit scared of going to the client and saying there's a problem, and she would just say, well, do it how they've said. And I ended up bypassing her because she was never supportive, and I would go direct to the designer and say, I can see a problem here. And so I was kind of undermining the PM, and in hindsight, that was a really bad thing to do. It didn't help the team. It really didn't help her to grow as a PM. It didn't help her build confidence with actually saying to the client, we've got a slight problem here. By taking her out of the loop, it wasn't helping her, and it was just causing more problems than it was solving. So that's certainly something that at the time I thought I was trying to do the right thing by trying to catch these things early, but the way I was going about it was probably not the best.
I would add one more thing to this whole discussion in terms of like positives, and this is something that to me is extremely important, and is something that I didn't necessarily appreciate at the beginning. But when I joined, and I'm going to go back to Novoda because we've made the name already. So when I joined Novoda, there was, I don't know if it's still a thing, but there was a thing where everyone that was hired got assigned a buddy. So there was a system for which...
it's still there.
So when you get hired, you get someone like a reference, a person that can help you with, understanding the process, understanding who to ask what, understanding how the company works, understanding how your team works, and understanding how even just the code works. Is like, I don't know, I need to touch this screen, but I don't know how it works. Can you walk me through it? Can we pair on this? Can you help me? And that's like, I think it took a lot of pressure out of me because I don't necessarily want to annoy other people. Like, I feel it would be annoyance to ask them things. But if I have a buddy, I know that A, it's fine that I ask them things. 2, is expected of me to ask them things. And 3, they're fine with it. I'm not bothering them. I'm not annoying them. And that helped me a lot. And I was very lucky that I had an excellent buddy that was also my team lead at the time. Shout out to Toto. Ciao, Toto. If you ever watch this. But he taught me so many things, not by necessarily telling me explicitly about them, but just showing me how to approach certain situations, how to approach other people having different ideas from yours, how to approach dealing with a client that is clearly telling you something really stupid and makes no sense. You don't tell them you're stupid. You tell them, okay, let's see what we can do. Like that sort of life lessons. I think I learned a lot from him. And I was very lucky that I had this buddy of mine that for the longest time was a very, very good influence on me as a professional and as a person. And I also had other people, other team leads, especially Andre. Hi, Andre, which also has always been an excellent reference point for me. And I think that's when it boils down to it, seniority is this. Like, it's being able to show to others that there's a good way of doing things, and not just showing, like, not showing off that there's a good way to do things, but like teaching, not necessarily with words, but with your behavior, with your composure, with the way you empathize with people and you treat everyone the right way. And I will always owe them an immense depth of gratitude. And I know this is like soppy part of things, but it's very important to me.
But
And
that's
I
good.
try to put into action what they have taught me every day.
Yeah, but that's great. I mean, you need to be grateful. That's also part of what we do, right? I mean, because otherwise you just get yourself in a spiral or always ranting and everything is
Yes.
shit. And when by the time you are 40s, you hate programming and you want to go to management. Yeah, I
I've
like the
had
fact.
colleagues that were like that, where everything was shit, and you end
Yep,
up in this constant loop of negativity where you get
yep,
more
yep,
and
yep.
more aggravated about everything that happens to you
Yep.
and around you. And they can be great coders, but then you realize that people skills are not their thing, and that's fine. But you need to weight everything by that. You need to understand that they might be aggravated by something, but you need to ask yourself, am I aggravated by that? Is that a problem for me or not? Are they like feeling this more acutely than I am because we are different people?
Not bad. Not
I
bad.
know, right?
Yeah, I mean this. No, but
Sometimes.
I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, they went deep. It
I
was
know.
very deep, my
I know.
friend. But jokes aside, I Aurelio was one of my students last year. During the course, I constantly say that everybody can code. Coding is the easy part, right? Being like a nice person is probably the difficult part. The communication is difficult. The empathy, right? The empathy is the impossible thing for so many people. But if you work in a team, that's what you need to do. And if you're a consultant, I feel that it's even more important to be a good communicator because you have like a short amount of time. You need to be very effective in very short time frame because they expect that you are like on the spot after like 3 days, right? Start shipping things. Uh, so I often say that there is no such thing as over communication when you are like a freelancer. Like people need to know what you are doing because you need to be aware that everybody needs to be aware that what's going on. Because if I send you too many messages, at some point you can say, Ivan, just come on, just give me a break. But it's worse if you are in a situation where like, well, you didn't tell me, right? That's a problem. So people skills, as Sebastiano says, those are the difficult ones. Those are the hard ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, core skills. But core
People
skills, it
skills.
feels like I'm
It's
like doing crunches, like more like a body weight kind of thing. Calisthenics, right? I'm very good at calisthenics, but I suck at communication. So, Mark, what else? Do we have
Spike
another
has been
question?
redeemed. Sorry, Ivan.
Sorry. Okay, here you go. Boom. You get the dog. Like staring at me. It freaks me out because he's just staring
He's just
and he
waiting for
doesn't
you to say
blink.
bye.
No, he doesn't blink. It freaks me out because then at some point you just need to be very, very quiet and look for the chest. He's still breathing, right? If it freaks me out constantly, and then you still, oh no, yeah, he's breathing. But why do you have to do that? Because it freaks. It's super creepy. Anyway, there is another question. So I would
Let's do the
like
last one and then
to.
it's time to wrap it up, I think.
Yes. So I find it interesting because I don't have a quick answer. So I want to see what you get. What's the best compliment you were ever given at work?
Okay, for me, there was one I got very early on. So my background is not probably a bit unusual that I didn't go to university. I didn't get a degree in computer science or anything like that. I left school after, in the UK, we have A levels. That's usually when you go on to college or university after that. But at the time, I was really, really disillusioned with the educational system. I love to learn, but I disliked being taught. And at school, the uh, the way they taught in school was, as I now know, is rather different to how it works at university or college. Um, where it's really down to the onus is on you to learn much more at university and college rather than being taught. But that's what I'd got disillusioned with. So I'd have probably been fine had I gone that route, but at the time, being young and impetuous, I decided I was going to go off into the world and make my way. I'd always coded in my spare time. I, learned on BASIC as a kid, and in my teens taught myself C and that kind of stuff. And I went through a few kind of more techie support jobs, and after I must have been in my early 20s, I got a job where I was primarily doing tech support, but there was a need to actually I had an idea for how we could code something, and the development team didn't have any bandwidth to do that. So I said, well, I'm happy to give it a go. And the long story short was I eventually joined the development team full time.
Nice.
But when one of the developers was reviewing my code, he commented, "You write very readable code." And it wasn't something I'd ever been taught. I guess it's just how I taught myself. But that I took as a real compliment, that, your code's really easy to read and understand. So, yeah, that's probably a good example of that.
Thanks. Sebastiano, do you have an answer for that?
Favorite compliment? Kind of hard.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. My favorite compliment, I don't have an exact quote, but my favorite thing is when someone recognize that I'm working to help them. Because now, as a team lead, that's what I do the vast majority of the time. I'm trying to, as you were saying, I have a big umbrella and there's a shitstorm coming, and I'm there against the wind with my umbrella, be like, "Fuck you, shitstorm," and I'm trying to do that as much as I can. And when the people that I work with see that and recognize that I'm dealing with shit on their behalf, like, they get the bugs, but I get the rest of the shit. So like that's nice, because it tells me that I'm at least partly doing the right thing.
I've got another one, actually, if you're interested.
Go for it.
As it's nice to finish on positive stuff. So I was working on a contract, and it was coming to the end of my contract. Oh, don't know what.
My contract.
I was coming to the end of the contract, and it was at a time where the team was shifting from one project to the next. So there was a little bit of overlap, and they were all starting on the new stuff, and it was pointless me really getting deep into something when my contract was finishing in a couple of weeks. So one of the things that I'd noticed was that there was one of the designs that they were going to have to implement looked quite challenging. And so I suggested, why don't I just do a proof of concept on how we could implement this, so that when someone does come to pick up that particular story, they've got something that they can use. And it was kind of with some weird shapes and outlines, but still needed elevation. I mean, this is not Compose we're talking about. This is in Viewland, and so I worked on this proof of concept and got something working, and left it with them. And a month or two after I left, someone on the team reached out to me and just said, I picked up that story and used your proof of concept, and you really saved me a chunk of work. Thank you. Just knowing that someone appreciated and made the effort to reach out meant that it was worthwhile, and it just meant a lot that someone took the trouble to do that.
That's very nice.
Love it.
Ivan, do you have anything?
Well, something that happened when I was when we were working at the office, right? This thing where where people work together back in the days. They told me, Ivan, you can make a room brighter, you can lift up the morale of the people when you're in a good mood, especially when you're like, yeah, let's do this, high energy people. And that's, for me, it's important. It's happening less working remotely because it's a different environment, but I always try to crack a joke during a meeting. Monday morning is hard, or the stand-up is tough. So I like the fact that when a lot of people that work with me, think about me, they think about the funny guy, right? Or the one that at some level it was always in a good mood, even if I'm in a very maybe not super good mood that day. But I try to lift up the morale, because I think that for a team it's a great thing. And I got told a couple of times that people notice when you're even it feels like you're always in a good mood. Believe me, not.
I want to kill you, but yes.
Yeah, no, but it's more like you have your baggage, your own shit at home, but when the camera turns on, you try to force yourself. And that's why I also have a smile sticker, right? Because most of the time you have it inside, but you are so with your head in your ass that you're just grumpy because it's Monday, and then you're just, no, even just let it go. Yeah? And if you start smiling, people start smiling. So that's something that I like. Okay.
I'm out of beer. I'm out of beer.
So you are out of beer. Let's have a look at the.
Can we make someone else happy? Given
yes,
that's
we can make. So let's run the giveaway. Boom!
Whoa, Sasha.
Mr. Sasha, that got the stickers. I'm actually wondering. Yeah, I don't have your Italian address, so yes, I'm gonna reach out to you. I mean, I remember the Berlin one. I don't remember the one in Italy.
You know the city, but that's it.
Yeah, I know that it's in the south or whatever. So jokes aside, Sasha, thank you for your support as a subscriber. You get also the holo sticker, and this is it. I think we are good to go, Sebastiano. So
yes.
next episode.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Yes, we have Chuck. And I want to give you once again the slide link.
Any weird questions you might have about Compose state management, how the slot table works, snapshots, what are they, how do they work, like that sort of low-level Compose stuff, Chuck is your person. So if you have doubts, that's really a unique opportunity to ask. So make sure that you make the most out of it. And after Chuck, on next Sunday, yeah, Spike has left. I think that's a good
Yeah,
signal that we need to wrap it up.
Yeah,
Like,
let's wrap it up. The
Ivan,
dog
I
is
need
on
to
the
go
floor.
out.
Yeah, that's part of the taking breaks that we were
Yeah.
mentioning in the chat. So I don't care if you have a stream. I need to pee.
And yeah, so in a week, next Sunday, we have our good friend from Google, Manuel Vivo. And as you might know, Manuel is the author of the recently published architecture guide for Android. And he's going to be talking, explaining it to us, because I haven't read it yet. But also, I guess, taking questions from you folks, because I know that there's been a lot of discussion over Twitter about parts of the architecture guide. And yes, again, bring your questions, bring your doubts, bring your ideas, and let's discuss this with with the person that is the most appropriate to discuss this with. And I think that's all. Even this is there. Oh, you managed to
Yes.
get Spike back on the couch.
No, I'm grabbing him because he's giving me the. He does a noise with his nose when he needs to go. Like he's like doing because he wants to. And so to prevent him to peeing on the floor, I'm bribing him with a treat. So I really have like 30 seconds, and then it's over. I need to go out.
Okay, so while you feed the dog a treat, just a reminder: if you're a subscriber, come on the Discord right away, because we're gonna do together, and I'll take your ideas, maybe, the clickbaity thumbnail for the YouTube video that we're gonna publish tomorrow. If you're watching this on YouTube, next time, just don't forget, you can still join us even if you don't like being on Twitch. Just keep a look on the Discord at the usual times. Thank you very much. It needs to be said for everyone's contributions to this. We were thinking about focusing more about war stories. It kind of grew from there a lot more than just that. But there's so much that we can talk about that this is a conversation that I feel is going to keep going on. Thank you very much, Mark, for sharing your stories. And
Absolute pleasure, as always.
Always nice having you here. I'm kind of sad that you didn't get to use the new sound that I've added for you, but I'm sure you're going to make up for it.
Oh, yes.
And Ivan, shall we see you on Discord, or shall you go to... Maybe. I'll be there. Ivan might be there, might not be there. Depends on the dog. He's not in charge anymore. He's clearly not in charge anymore.
I mean, I have a dog that has to pee and a crying baby in the other room, so my chances are very thin at the moment. So bear with me. Enjoy your evening, everybody, and thank you for being with us. Mark, thank you again. It was great. And Sebastiano, good luck with the thumbnail.
Ciao. See you all on Wednesday.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.